Welcome to Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed. I am Juliette Hahn. I'm here with my co-host, Brent Sopel, and we are here to change the narrative. We want to educate, but we also want you guys to understand what it is like to be dyslexic and how things can change. So join us every week for Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed. Welcome to Word Blindness. This is Juliette Hahn. I'm here with my co-host, Brent Sopel. How are you?
I'm okay.
So glad. So glad. And we are bringing you another special guest, Ashley Henderson. And I'm going to introduce you, Ashley. Ashley is really a pioneer in the dyslexic education space. So Brent and I are so excited to dive into this. And Ashley runs the dyslexic program at Newberry College. And we met because my son and we were going on college tours, and I found this wonderful university, this wonderful college. And I was like, wait, why doesn't anyone talking about this? Why doesn't anyone know about this? And I think one of the first things I said to you, Ashley, was I Googled it and it popped up. And you were like, yes, I'm so glad my marketing people are on top of it. But I want to welcome you to Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed. We are really about sharing the stories, but also talking about things that maybe people don't understand so they can learn a little bit. They can feel, the stories, because stories connect us. So again, welcome to Word Blindness.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited. It's great to continue paving the way and educating as we go, because there's so much to know about it. And I'm glad to share.
I'm so glad. And now, Brent, I'm going to ask you first. Do you want to ask the first question, or do you?
I got 10 million rabbit holes, and we were going down one before you got on. So I guess, tell us a little bit about your story so we can kind of quick get an overview. Then, we can jump into some of these rabbit holes because, like I said, we were about to dive one before you jumped on here.
Well, I was, I grew up in a time where dyslexia or word blindness was really unknown. It was the underlying cursor of, you can't read, you can't do this, you can't do that, but yet you're still supposed to be part of the norm and follow all the norms. And so as, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, I think about, I hear people's stories and they say, it's this one time that, I was sitting here and I remember not reading, or I remember the teacher calling on me. I never really have that one moment. I always struggled. I didn't like being called on in class to read. I knew when I read something, I didn't understand it. And I'd have to have, back then we had no technology. So, I had a gracious mother that read everything to me. And then, writing was just crazy. I know you. And, I was grateful to have that, but yet it was just, I was empty, as a big word, as I didn't know how to fill that void. And I never had that one moment, but I always constantly had those people telling me, why even try? You're stupid. You're lazy. Why, you shouldn't even go to high school. I mean, you shouldn't even go to college. Why even try? And that, I think I turned that into the challenge and the drive that pushes me forward, is proving them wrong. Like, I just have to, I'm going to figure it out, but your normal way does not work for me. And, I went through testing and, it was just, I was one of those under the radar. I could make it look really good to a certain point. And then, I tutored all the time, and it was just that extra work. So, I stayed exhausted, and it just made life, living through school miserable. And I made it just, figuring out and manipulating it, finding that one person in class that, I could look over and see, never, I was never one, like, don't put me on the front row. I didn't want to be on the front row. I wanted to be on the second or third row. So, and I fight that now, in education of, they need to be in the front. They need to be, no, they don't. They need to be further back so they can use resources around them. So, I struggled all through school. But I think that's what gave me, the challenge to prove wrong. I I mean, I face a fight and I'm coming out winning. It doesn't matter how, and it might be ugly as we go, but I'm going to figure out how to problem solve it. And I think I turned that into my drive. And when you told me no, yes, I am, and I'm going to prove it to you. And so I struggled. I struggled socially. I wanted to be, and I came from a very, my family took care. My dad was very, could take care of us, and we had lots of opportunities. And I was grateful for that. But I never could fit into the right mold. I always felt like I was being put in. I always say, don't put a square in a circle. You can't fit in. And I always felt like I was being put in that mold to fit and look like everyone else. And I'm not. I'm totally different. So I think that kind of helped me through school. It was just I struggled and hung on to the coattails of whatever I could. And okay, I got that year out of the way, and I kept going. And then once I got to, I had a guidance counselor. And high school is not good for me. And I know there's been several conversations, and I know, Brent, you struggle with some stuff too. I got to high school, and I was trying to fix me. And because I couldn't figure it out along the way, I started making very poor choices in high school. And I skipped school. But I was finding any excuse that I could to, and I know my students, when they hear this, they're gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, you you tell us not to skip class, but yeah, you did." But
you learned from it, and that's what I'm going to just pause you for a second, because this is what is so important for everyone to listen to, because it's not easy. It's not easy to kind of rehash this and go back. And every time Brent and I talk about it, there is a little piece, that little kid, like when you were saying those things in the beginning, that you found, the one person, I like the chills, because I was a master at finding that. I was a master at figuring out how I can manipulate the teacher, and not negatively, but it is a way that I wasn't going to be found out, right? That like I really had no idea what was going on. And so for your students to hear this, it's important, because every single person that we talk to, I mean, a couple that we're interviewing, but also Brent and our story, like we're smiling, and it's not because we're like, oh, this is fun, but it is, we're relating to it, and we understand. And that's what, when your students listen to this, they're going to say, okay, yeah, I made some poor choices. Hopefully they came out on the top, because not all the time it's going to happen. So I appreciate you opening up and being vulnerable, because again, it's not easy. It's not easy to go back there.
And those poor choices, when I speak to kids in colleges, and I'm like, oh, drugs are awesome. I love drugs and alcohol. Like, give me more Coke. People are like, what the hell are you yeah, it took my pain away. So, those poor choices were the pain from struggling.
Right.
You take a look at the world. Oh, you have that drink, you escape. That's what it was. It's easier for us to make, bad choices, poor choices, however the terminology is, because we struggle so much. There isn't a person in this world say, tell me what you hate doing the most, whatever it is. Go, okay, do that for 8 hours and tell me how you feel.
I know. It's just mind grueling.
Yeah,
it is.
So, I always talk about those poor choices. Why? Obviously I'm big about the why. I almost died doing all the drugs and alcohol. Yes, I escaped away from myself. The old lot of jokes is that I'm sober now. I gotta play sober golf and have sober sex the rest of my life. I'm like, I gotta feel those feelings, right? It is what we are. It's who we are, and it's just understanding that portion of what those poor choices are. Where they come back to.
And if we can talk about it more, and this, I don't mean to interrupt you, because I want you to continue, but if we can talk about it more, we can maybe help someone say, you know what, wait a second, these guys understand. Maybe I need to go talk to someone, or maybe I need to not make a poor choice to, and because there's people out there that are also going through it. When we talk about the relatability, which is so important, and feeling understood, like, the reason why we're smiling is because like we all were going through it. And when you're in high school, and elementary school, you don't you're going through it. I mean, I've had so many people from high school now that reached out because of this podcast, and they're like, wait, I didn't know you were dyslexic. And I'm like, I didn't know you are dyslexic, but we were in the same class. So like, I don't know why we didn't think about it, but we, weren't diagnosed then, but we're like, oh my gosh, we had, even though it was a class of misfits. And, I talk about it, I played sports. I was an athlete. I did have a lot of friends. So I was very fortunate in that sense, but I was still in going into this misfit class. My friends would be like, well, where are you going? And I'm like, I got to go here because, school's hard. But I had those misfit kids that we all had a really big respect. And I always brought them into things. I always, gave them a high five. I was like, hey, and because they understood me in a very different way than my friends that I was going to. So there was definitely times where it's like, you feel like you're living two lives, right?
Ash, let me ask you this. We were just about to talk this, but Julia, rudely jumped in on this conversation where she's off the other podcast. I'm just kidding.
I was 2 minutes late.
We were just about to talk about, socially, you just mentioned it, and I've said this to her a few times, I say most dyslexics don't have a lot of friends is what I've come across. And myself is one of them is because everybody looks at me, you're a whack job. We see the world so differently. Is that what you see? And I don't mean it's the way it sounds, but it's just there's no relatability with some of the other kids for that friendships, to build that I see. I know that Kobe Bryant, they talk about him, not being, outworking everybody, outworking. Why? Because he wasn't friends with any of those guys, so he didn't go out with them. So that's all he had, self-esteem. Guys like that is what I see. Is that what you see, or I'm just seeing something through my pain?
I think it's a bit of all. I see those who have those groups of friends who have been able to relate to each other, or they're very supportive of each other. I've seen as you explained, not having that connection, and then it's a bit of a mixed bag. The ones I worry about are the ones that don't, or the ones that have so many friends that you can just tell it's an act. Like I'm covering everything up, and they're going to be my support team. And
I call them.
Yes. And, and those are like, I'm like red flag. Like those are my, like when they come in, I'm like, okay, I need to keep an eye on this one. But, the ones that, I was the one that I had some friends, but I never had that best friend or that one. And, we moved a lot and, and as I grew up too. So, making friends was difficult, but it also was an escape of, okay, I don't, those people knew how I was. I couldn't learn. I didn't like being called on. I was still trying to fit in the friend group, and we would move on to the next thing. So it's almost like a fresh start. So every time we went to a new town, it was like, okay, well, maybe this will be the time if I can, I can be involved. My parents were great to get me, they would push me to get in those uncomfortable situations, to make those connections. And I, oftentimes, I've been in public schools, I've been in private schools, now college, you see those that have pushed and those that don't. And it's just, you've got to really lift all of them up, depending on what they are, because they all feel that emptiness, or that they're trying to fill the void or the gap, and they're trying to find a relatable person who understands them. And you just have to learn, one of my biggest things that I do with my students, in college, especially freshmen, you're 18 and all of a sudden, while you're an adult and you need to make all these decisions on your own and you've got it figured out. And, we do great. August, we are, on top of the world. September, but, the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I've had more kids who come in my office, slam the door. We have tears, we cry, we cuss, whatever we need to do, get it out. And they just need that relatable person to like get it out and move on. And I see that in all the social groups, no matter what the age. It's, I started in first grade teaching as, which is crazy. People say you're so dyslexic.
Well, Brent was like, I've never met a lot of dyslexic teachers. So here's one. This is why I love this. This is why I love the story. So you started teaching in first grade.
Yes, I did. I started teaching because I didn't want a student to ever hear what I heard or feel what I felt. And I still couldn't read. I still had a hard time writing, but I thought I've got it. I got through college, and I mailed my both my degrees to that counselor that told me that might as well not. And
so that's what we interrupted you, so that you had the guidance counselor that told you weren't going.
Correct. Yes.
And I did the same thing. And my mom, when I got on the honor roll, she sent it. And I remember my mom saying to the woman, don't tell someone they're not going to be able to do something when you don't know. And I, like you, was very determined. I was like, I'm going to college, maybe just to spite this woman.
Oh yeah. With your attitude, absolutely. Just to spite. I feel sorry for her husband.
And, I think it's, now I'm seeing like those, you talk about those teachable moments. Like they've got to have that person that relates to them no matter what it is. And I think that's what I'm doing on that college campus, is giving that, if it's a social issue, let's come to me. I mean, there's always, like you said, Brent, there's always a reason. If they're in a fight, step back. What caused that fight? Like, there's always a reason behind the action. And I'm always like, let's break it down. And I take that and teach them, learn from your moments. It's not, and me being vulnerable is kind of my way of showing like it's okay. I mean, I did that in first grade. Like, I don't know how to spell, but here I am teaching you how to read, but it's those moments that let people know you're human. You don't have to fit in the norm. And I really feel like with life today and society we're supposed to be programmed, and we're supposed to be following the same format, and that, we're not. I mean, especially, no human is, but even as a dyslexic, we're not.
Well, there's, obviously, a few things to this is, there isn't a day in this life, almost 47, where I've been understood, misunderstood every single day. And, you talk about robots are supposed to be this, we were talking before, is those people don't have it, so they don't understand. So, and I don't even think you're being vulnerable. People say the same thing. No, it's the truth. It's reality. Or Juliet said, Mr. Negative.
No, you're not. You're
Just,
the realist.
it's what we live. It's what we go through.
Mm-hmm.
It's who we are, and they don't have it. They don't understand it. So for your kids to come in and go, Julie was, crying for the last 2 weeks to me. So we all go through it. We're all going through it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the trauma. It's having somebody to turn to, somebody that understands. And if we don't talk about it, how are we supposed to educate the world on it? And, we're talking something that's, second most popular thing compared to cancer. So it's everywhere. It's just not talked about. And that's why, I tell these stories. I tell, the realists, because it's true. It is who we are and what we are. And every time I share it isn't for me, it's for who might hear this.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, Ashley, and I think, and I know I had talked to Brent after we came to your campus, and, my husband and my parents and my sister, Montgomery and I think like skipped out with like the biggest smile. And I was like, did that really just happen? And he looked at me because he was skeptical. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. We've talked about his injuries and, wanting to play soccer and all these different things. And so it was kind of a lot of emotions around it. And he just looked at me and he's like, okay, that was awesome.
Can you talk a little bit about Newberry and the Dyslexic program? What it is there for for listeners to understand that a little bit more?
I would love to. It is. This is the second year. We basically, Newberry came to me and said, here, clean slate. We see the need. We see professors needing guidance. So here you go. Like, what do you see and where we go? And so I've created a program where I work with students. They meet. They go through the normal process. They're part of the normal 4-year college experience. There's no special class. They're not being pulled into other areas. I'm kind of, they say I'm the mom on campus. And so it's, they meet with me once a week as a check-in. I individualize it. I do not have a set program. Everybody keeps coming to me and saying, okay, give me the rundown. Like, what are the 10 steps you do? It's different with every kid and every day. If this student just needs to come in and like, mom and dad are going through a divorce and I really don't care what English 113 has, so we need to focus on that. Some just need time management skills. Some need me to read a test out loud. So I really build it around the student themselves, especially that first year. Transition from high school to college is a huge step. And just guiding them into what this next step in their life looks like. We get over the hurdle of the freak out of, I'm not sure I can do this. And then, and make a plan, but everybody's plan is different. As we go through our, 4 years or 5 years or whatever it takes, I teach them those skills, but they're more life skills. It's not like, okay, you don't quite know what those vocabulary words are, or let's work on spelling. It's what are the tools you need to be a successful person in this world, and focus on you, not we as a whole or the freshman class, but like you as a whole. And so it just depends on the student. I also work with the faculty, so I'm teaching. I'm doing some dyslexic simulations, and so they see. I have a wonderful school, and I'm going to give them kudos. But I taught there in the private sector before all of this, and my daughter, who is massively dyslexic, just like me, we're toe to toe. So we argue the same. We learn. I mean, we're just we're a force to be reckoned with. So, but I wouldn't have it any other way. But we were, I found Camperdown Academy in Greenville, South Carolina, and they are a specialized private dyslexic school who focus on all of this. I mean, they focus on the social, the emotional. They work on the reading skills, but they look at the person as a whole. I was teaching there, and that's actually the time, as I'm going through training, I'm an educator, I'm a dyslexic educator. But most of those people that were teaching, they got it because some of them there were dyslexic also. And so, you never knew what the classroom looked like. It was always outside or hands-on or somebody's building a rocket but that's what it took to learn. And they are the ones that they came, we had kind of conversations, and, I still today, work with them, and they kind of helped me, get in connection with Newberry. And we have them come on campus to do the dyslexic simulations for the professors. And so, I have some professors, I had one, throw a pencil at me. I've had one cry. Like they truly, it's an experience for them. And they say, I had no idea, and it's making them look at their classrooms. And some of them have said, let me relook at this, and how can I do it? Reach out to these students different. I see it. I know they need it. And so I work with professors also. And then I get the joy of traveling and visiting all these schools, and spreading this opportunity. And I think that just continues my journey is, anytime I can spread and pave a way for a dyslexic for new opportunity, I'm there, and it's always uncharted territory. And, we were talking about that. Brent, I'm very the out of the box thinker. So, I have students, I come up with crazy ideas, but if it works, it works. It doesn't, some people think I've like, what are you doing? But like, if I've got the concept across, that's the end result is to do it. There's more than one way to do something. And you just have to step back and look at it that way.
My gosh. I mean, again, I'm smiling ear to ear because I also know Brent, who has a daughter. I don't know if he was able to share his story, with his daughter going through college, but literally that I came across your program. I mean, everything that you're saying is for a parent. Again, I am dyslexic, but there's parents out there that, maybe one of them is not, or maybe it was grandparents, and neither of those, parents are dyslexic. And to know that there's a space. And again, as you said, it's a mainstream school. It's not a dyslexic school. It's a mainstream school with a support service. And not only just dyslexic. I mean, when I tell my friends that don't have dyslexic kids and their kids have gone through, they're like, freshman year is terrible. I can't believe that this exists. And I'm like, well, that's what the amazing thing is and what you're doing. Because if you can just also, and I know Brent wants to jump in too, but I want, after I ask this question, he can jump in, but I do want you to kind of tell your path of like how you started the school, but it all really, and from what I remember, not only your journey, but then your daughter's journey. And then it was like, okay, I need to make some changes. If I want you to touch on that, but Brent, did you want to add something before that?
I could add 10 million different things. Again, to be able to come to Mom on Campus, no matter where
everything.
you go. Yeah. It's, when I always talk about, it's that relatability.
It really is.
Yeah. I'd say it's, and I talk about this all the time. Like if you're going to therapist or counselor, you've got to go to somebody who's had your top 2 or 3 traumas. Because I call it counseling out of the book, right? They're lying, and then you get mad. I call it gaslighting, So for them to be able to go somewhere and have somebody that they can relate with, because for me, a pro athlete, 18 years, I didn't relate with one person. I don't speak to one person I play with. There's no relatability. Not at all. So to have that at a crucial time, I left home at 16, never been back. It's scary. An 18-year-old kid going somewhere blindfolded, then they're like, oh my God, now I could be, this adult thing he isn't so much as cracked up to be, but to have that place, have that safe place, in a school environment, because that's our worst place. That's our worst nightmare. Nobody ever wants to go back to their worst nightmare for 8 hours. So to have that support system, have you there, people have no idea how big that is.
100%. So if you can kind of take us through why, and not why, because we obviously know why, but like what the stepping stones were for you to create, this really, I mean, as I said, you're a pioneer in this, because I have looked all around, and I know that there's some schools that are, specifically dyslexic schools in, and I'm talking about universities, because as you know, Montgomery went to, we were very fortunate. He was able to go to Southport, which is specialized in dyslexia. And I've talked to Brent about that. Like having those 3 years, I literally didn't have to worry. Like it was the most insane time of my life where I wasn't like anxious and wearing all the time. And then Montgomery was brought back into mainstream. It is a wary all the time. So like, what are those building blocks that you did to kind of create what you're doing down south in this very amazing, kind of atmosphere?
I mean, I don't know if I have certain building blocks. I mean, I think it's just my life experience as a dyslexic and what I felt as I grew up, but also I was the parent of the dyslexic, and it's the opposite side of the fence. Is okay now. It's not you. I mean, I can take stuff all day long, and you can tell me whatever, but start on my daughter, and we're gonna go.
Mom, you know nothing, Mom. You don't get it, Mom. You don't understand me.
Right, and and we've
that's so crazy, yeah.
We've had those moments. I mean, and she would kill me for saying this but we've talked about it. But oftentimes, dyslexics they can't read the body language sometimes, or the feelings, and it's a text of some kind, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, she's so mad at me." And I'm like, "No, let me read it," And so, so she has been kind of my guiding light, as on the parent side of, I get how you feel, but you also have to. You can't bubble them up either, and you can't wrap them up and hold their hand the whole time. And I tell my parents, a skint knee is not a bad thing. Learning a lesson your own way is okay. That's what you're going to remember, And so I've tried, and she will tell you sometimes I don't do the best job, but we come to those experiences that I've been in, and you want to protect them, but it's also I've got to stand back and let her be. I mean, she's 20 years old. She's in college, and it's a roller coaster. What works one day doesn't work another. And so that helped me build that parenting block for the school in the program, because I spend as much time with the parents. With some parents are very hands off. Here you are, you've built your skills, and some parents, I mean, I get a call every day, and so but it's a learning process, and I'm glad I have the opportunity to do that. And so I learned through her. And some of them were bad learning moments of, Mom, don't do that ever again, but I got the other side of the fence. And then on top of that, I put myself, I put myself in that situation of being an educator, to pave that way. So I feel like I'm that trifold of, I've
Trifecta.
been in those spots. But I'm always that one to step back and look at, like, how does that person feel? And like, as Brent says, that relatable moment, you've got to gain trust in people no matter what. And if they trust you, then they'll open up to you, and you can make progress in where you're going with yourself in life. I'm the one, yes, education and learning to read is important, but if you don't have, Brent and I were saying the social emotional part, like, stop what we're doing. We've got to focus on this, get whatever's out of your head, get whatever's hurting out, and then move on. I mean, if you keep all that bottled up, it just festers and builds, and it's not the end result is not good. And so, living through her and guiding her through college and becoming, a young woman, I've used that into, what would I want my parents to have as support, and what I needed as a parent, and just getting to be able to sit in that versatile role is a gift. I really do think, and some days you don't know which seat to choose, but it's there, and I'm thankful that I have those opportunities. I've been put in those tough positions to know how to guide.
Right. And I just want to let people know, you can go to newberry.edu and then under admissions, or you can even just go Newberry Dyslexia, and it will literally bring you there. I mean, and that's exactly what I did. And I remember that day I said to my husband, wait, this is insane. And I love what you said about there's no building blocks. And I kind of figured that answer, but I was like, you know what? I just want to see that. Because, and Brent, I know we were just smiling so big because, right now I have a senior. He has a daughter that's in college. And as you're right, we have gone through our own fights. But also what the beautiful thing about all three of us is our fights have gotten us to pretty successful places in our lives. And it's because of what we've gone through and the healing. Brent, has gone through, some zigzags and churns, but also has come out, with such clarity and is bringing such awareness about dyslexia and talking about the things that sometimes, I didn't even realize that I stuffed, right? I thought I've dealt with that. I've worked through that. Oh, wait, no, I haven't. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm a puddle. Mm-hmm. And it's important for others to hear it, but it is important for our kids to learn their own fights in certain things. I mean, that's one of the things that I love about my child is he is such a great self-advocate for himself. And I know I was able to give him those tools, even though there's times where I want to come in and rip someone's face off. I mean, like literally I want to, go. And I know that it's like, okay, I have to pause because again, we're raising kids that are going to go out into this world and they're going to make this world a better place because of the struggles they went through, but also from us as parents. And so, what you're doing is just amazing.
Life isn't easy.
No.
Anybody wants to say it's the white picket fence, desperate housewives, they're the ones that are in the worst shape than anybody. Mm-hmm. And, we're both parents and we know nothing like Dad, you know nothing about hockey. Okay. You're right. Cause I'm dad. Right. You don't know. I'm just like, okay, you're right. You're right. And that's just reality. And, it's the biggest thing that, as you had mentioned, a lot of teachers, you mentioned dyslexic teachers because I said that I'm like, I don't know one. So it's that understanding to be able to, relate. Because if you talk to there's always that one teacher, that one person. And she's asked me the same thing. Who is that one person? And I said, no, I've never had that one person. In hockey or in school, I've never had that. So for you to be that one person to thousands of kids, because, a lot of parents don't understand. Dads, hard nose, I call it hard love is hard death for dyslexics. You want,
It truly is.
yeah, you bury your kid even more by yelling, and the frustration dad gets, or mom, it only makes things worse. That call every day from a parent, it's they don't get it. You're making it worse.
Right.
Just like, I'm coaching hockey and running a hockey program. People tell me I have no idea what I'm doing. Okay, because you've put your skates on before, right, Grandma? The one that yelled at me, 65, right? You skated. You got no idea. But it all bears down to they don't like who they are themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
They're not okay with. I always say, you look in the mirror and say, "I love you." No one believe and feel it. To be a whole person. And all those people talk about them, they're not. So then they deflect. We talk a lot on here about defense mechanisms. I'm the guy that kind of finds a lot of things, and I get the "you're an asshole," I don't want to talk to you anymore kind of reactions. Because I want them to see it, not because I want them to understand what they're doing, how they're running, or how they're deflecting, and not facing it. I want to do this. I want to do this. Okay, this is where you are. What are you? Who are you? And why? And once we can figure all those things out, then we can start moving forward.
Yeah. And I mean, and having these conversations again, because we talk about this a lot, is, teenagers, kids, all of that's hard stuff. But when you stuff things, and a lot of times, again, I feel like I've worked through a lot of stuff. I'm like, yeah, I'm in a good spot. And then all of a sudden something will happen. And I'm like, oh, okay. Clearly, I have some little trauma there that I haven't worked through. I really thought it was gone. I thought I was like in a really good spot.
Yeah, it's
totally.
Okay.
It is. Yes.
I always make the joke, sober people are the best people in the world, because we have to self-reflect to stay sober. Is any of this easy? Absolutely not. And you have to go back and take a look at, as you said, what happened? How did we get there? What part of this do I have to own? That's how you grow as a person, no matter who you are, dyslexic, non-dyslexic, ADHD. And we get too many people put the blinders on and get, and kind of go, I understand it, it's painful. It is. Is that childhood trauma or whatever that is? We all have it. It's facing it and being okay with what that new path is for you. Everything happens for a reason. We all can't, I don't have a crystal ball. I want this to go this way and this way. That's not reality, though. And that's the biggest thing is your path is your path. Own your path, because it's only your path, and you can't be on anybody else's path. Can't be like Juliet, right? Walking on the golf course, right?
I would love for you, because again, we wanted so much for you to come on, talk about your journey, your daughter's journey, but then also what you're doing out there in colleges. Because again, as a parent, that's like, okay, what's out there? A lot of times guidance counselors at schools don't know about it. I've sent this to all of my, anyone that I know. I'm like, put this on your list. Like, Newberry, did you guys know? No, we didn't know about this. I'm like, why didn't you know about this? Even, college people that you hire to help, no one seemed to know. And I was like, and of course, obviously we're in the North. The South, you're going to have a lot more people that know about it. Right. And so, but I want this to go far. Newberry is a small school, but it is a beautiful campus. We felt it was our first, down South. It was our first campus that we went to. And it was after Montgomery's like, still my favorite. I'm like, I know. And I know it was his favorite, but I also know it was favorite because of you, Ashley, and the connection he felt. And I'm 100%, I know that because it was like, he knows he would be okay. And he knows it's going to be hard.
Let me ask you, because I created the Y program, for coaches. I need to know if your kid has mental health or learning disorders so I can educate the coaches on how to teach you. Do you work with, any of the coaches at Newberry? Because, again, we learn differently. And as a coach, you have to know how each one of your kids learn. Sam drove 10 miles. I got no idea where the hell Sam is. None. Okay, is it this? Is it that? Edie, what is it? Do you speak with the coaches too, or is that a separate thing?
I do. If I as I roll out the program, because it was last year was the first year, we started very small. So last year I was implementing the program with students and teaching. So it was a rolling progress, and very flexible of change here and there. And so I really focused on those professors that were teaching those students directly in the class, and then the coaches that were teaching them, because most of mine, that's the misconception is, some students are going to come, for this program. Well, no, they're going to have the arts or the music or sports, because that's their outlet, and that's what they found that they strive in. And so, yes, if they are involved with that sport, then yes, I work directly with that coach to make sure everything as the human, are we, intact socially, emotionally. It's, I kind of back off and try not to be intrusive. If things are going well, then you don't hear much from me, besides just the interaction with the student. But as things start to kind of, if I see us going in a different direction, then I might reach out, hey, how are we doing with this? And so it's a team effort. It's not just me, but it's the professor, it's the RA on campus. If I needed to pull in housing, they're there for that opportunity. So as I roll out the program, yes, I will be working with the coaches, because it's just educating them in what that might look like. As we as parents and dyslexics, you see things and happen, and you're like, oh, I know where that's kind of going or coming from. But, if they don't know that, or they haven't experienced it, it would just fly under the radar and become a bigger problem later in life, or later that week. So as I build, yes, I do intend to do that. And that, along with educating the parents, you were mentioning a minute ago, and that sparked something, is the parents have this idea of what they want it to be. And I think I find myself teaching and educating the release of letting a dyslexic be a dyslexic, and watching, because in the end, it's going to be a beautiful thing of what they come up with or where they're going. It might be really messy along the way, but that's just our way of doing it. And it doesn't have to be neat and tidy, but it gets there. And, I see that in each student is, they always used to give me a fit, and that's, in public schools, because my students weren't sitting at their desks. They weren't, they were under their desks, or they were laying on the floor, or, or there was noise in the,
But they weren't
if you had drums, I was like, let them go. I'm learning a lot about like patterns, or who can't get a beat, or, that's why they're stumbling down the hallways, because they just don't have a rhythm. You can learn a lot, and you can't keep, you can't do that. And I try to teach that to like coaches, and that is like, you've gotta, we're the, it might be the fumbly ones, but we have so much to offer and be part of that.
So much strength. Well, that's the thing. It's focusing. And this is what, we've talked about this a million times, going into an IEP meeting, and they constantly talk about, the weaknesses. And every IEP meeting, I would always be like, okay, how about the strengths? Like, let's start. And I would like school everyone, and I would give this lecture, and I would cry, and I would yell. And my husband would be sitting there like with his hand on my knee. He's like, I can't believe we do this every year. And I'm like, but he's like, I get it. He's like, but it's so interesting. Again, right. It's constantly about the weaknesses and how to strengthen those weaknesses. And sometimes weaknesses are just weaknesses. When you're dyslexic, am I ever going to be able to spell? No. If I was taught a different way, would I ever be able to spell? No. And that's okay. But guess what? I have these really big strengths. And that's what I love that you're doing, and you're seeing, and you're highlighting. Same with Brent and how he's coaching and teaching. It's those things, to know both sides, right? Know what your strengths, know what your weaknesses, and celebrate both of them, and then move on.
Well, in the education system, sorry, is the IEP meeting. Let's say you got 6 teachers that are in there. None of them are dyslexic, so they got zero clue what we're talking about. If I'm sitting here in the U.S., I'm talking Canadian to them. They don't get it. I'm still working on. I'm still going to American school, trying to learn. I got my Canadian down pat, but they don't understand. So they don't understand, so they can't see that strengths and weaknesses because they don't understand. And that's that education person that we talk about is, more that we have this conversation, no matter where it is, if the word dyslexia is said, it's a win because everybody has strengths. Every single one of us has strengths and weaknesses. Stronger legs, strong left, right, every one of them. But in the education system, they don't understand that we have the same thing because they can't see our side.
That's right. And I mean, that's just, I think talking about education and being in the field, there's been so much change. And when I first started, I mean, I've been teaching. This is my 25th year. So when I started, it was not, you don't talk about dyslexia. You don't do, and there was so much pressure to not you conform to what you're given. And you've always got those everywhere I went, you had these teachers who got it, who wanted to break out of the mold, but their hands were tied. And so you're coming across, and thankfully more and more states are passing dyslexic laws, and more are looking at early screeners, and more are passing where these can embrace what they see it. And a lot of times you get that defeated teacher who's like, okay, I've been beaten up so much, I'm just going to conform to what they want. It takes that teacher to say, hell no, I'm not doing that. Like when you come in and observe me, I'm going to slide the book make it look like it. But when you leave, I'm going to pull back out what I know works. And it takes the guts in education to make a path and say, this isn't right. And I see more and more changing, and which is good. But I also see very, very tired teachers, tired of fighting the battle because of the unknown and the people that have been so removed from classrooms making the decisions that they need to be listening to those who are in the field and in the depths with all these students to get it and listen. And I think that's a skill that is far gone, as no one knows how to listen anymore. And that, that's what I needed as a dyslexic early in life, is just listen. Sometimes it didn't make any sense. I just needed to get it out.
And what you just said was, I just actually even wrote the time down, because you're right. There's so many teachers, and we've talked about it, like talking to the teachers, like, hey, can you think about this? Think about this. If if the kid is moving around or needs something in their hand, maybe that's how they learn, because in most dyslexics can't be sitting at the chair. They're not learning. They're trying to sit still. So they're focusing on sitting still instead of, listening to what you're saying. And so the fact that you just laid that out, I think is so beautiful. And I want, everyone that's listening to this, think about that and go praise that teacher that is tired, but has that fight in them, because you need that teacher to doing what they need to do. You don't want that teacher to turn around, because I know so many that they were like, I can't do it anymore. I'm not winning. My mom was one that fought, and she was one that, they never want her in the IEP meeting, but she was like, I am there, and I'm going to take everyone down and say, this is what this kid needs. I don't care that I'm the kindergarten teacher. I see this and I know exactly what's happening, and this is going to happen. And we need more of you guys out there.
Well,
that's exactly right.
To that portion is, it's not a fight. If she needs a ball in her hand, why is it a fight? Is it hard to do this? Oh. No. Why? So making more than, if that kid needs, that's all, we're not asking for 70 things. We're not asking to, do cartwheels down the hall. I think that's a misconception. It's a few little things.
And you mentioned like the IEP. I have stopped an IEP for my daughter and said, okay, mom hat is off. And I have, don't say this, don't ever tell a parent. And I'm like, okay. And, conform back to, okay, what were you telling me? But it's a teachable moment. I'm going to piss you off, but this is a learning moment for you. You don't say that. That's not how this runs, Yeah. And I think, yes, what you're saying is, you've got to, it's just guts. And, sometimes it's helping them find the guts to do it, and know that it's okay either way. That's how you learn, motivate him and get him there, and then if not, what do you do? I mean, you've got to try a different way.
Yeah. I mean, but what you said is, it really paints the picture. It's the people that are making the decisions are the ones that are not in the classroom. So they're the ones that don't understand, because they're the non-dyslexic, they're people in the field. And so they're just checking boxes and saying, this is what we need to do. And that's what's wrong to me with how the world is it's getting further and further like that. And it needs to go back where it's, again, asking those questions, because questions are not hard, and making, as Brent just said, little adjustments can be everything for a dyslexic kid. It literally can make them go out of school with less scars, with less, self-esteem issues. And so it is something, and again, you're right. There has been some change, obviously, but we laugh about it. I mean, word blindness was back in the 1800s. That's what they called dyslexia. And then they decided to call it dyslexia, which all of us dyslexic can't spell. And so it's almost like a joke. It's like every time I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, I think even when I was putting this podcast together, I misspelled it on something. And one of my friends that I have that always looks at things, she's like, you spelled dyslexia wrong. And I was like, of course I did. Because who can spell dyslexia? It's bringing it back to that understanding. And so, Ashley, I just want to thank you so much for joining us. And I want, also to thank Newberry as an institution for saying, you know what, we need to see change, because that's something that's really important as well, is that they saw that there is a need, and they're like, how can we step out of the box? And that's what we need: more universities, more schools. How can we step out of the box to help the whole person? It's not one-sided. It's not everyone's going down a lane. There's people going to the left, going to the right. And if we can just do it where everyone can learn a little bit and take a piece. Yes, you're not going to make everything perfect, but making these little steps that Newberry and you are doing is brilliant. So I just, again, thank you so much for what you guys are doing for the dyslexic world. And Brent with his foundation, what he's doing for the dyslexic awareness, and again, just talking, and what we're doing on this podcast,
Yes.
bringing these conversations are so important. And so, Brent, I'm going to let you close this out.
No, 100%. We could go all day. We could go down.
I have so much more. I think we might have to do doubles.
Yeah, we're only 4 feet deep. We got 400 feet more to go. So it's just obviously Julia said it. It's what Newberry, what you're doing is it's not game changing. Saving lives.
It is.
It really is. It's special. People have no idea what that struggle is. They don't have it, so you don't understand it. If you're blind or you're in a wheelchair, people can see it. We're dumb, stupid, and lazy every day. 46 years old, I still think I'm dumb every day. And you're keeping those kids to not be down the scars in the past that I have. So what you're doing is very, very special.
Well, thank you. I love it. I always find myself like I'm the one, like the new one, like running down the beach, and then there's no one else there. But okay, here we go. We're still going. I love every minute of it, and it's worth it, because everybody needs somebody to listen to, and everybody needs somebody to trust, and that's, at the end of the day, that's all that matters is a companion to know it's okay.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I'm going to leave it with this, because I like to now say this, as Brent said, you can't see dyslexia, but one of the things that people don't realize is a lot of times people with dyslexia have higher IQs. It's not an IQ thing. It's a learning style. And that is one of the things that needs to be said all the time, because yes, when you're in school, you look a little dumb because you can't follow things and you're not doing it, but it is not an IQ thing. It is a learning style. So again, thank you, Ashley, for joining Word Blindness. Thank you, Brent, as always. And you guys know what to do. Like, rate, review, and share. You don't know who needs to hear this. You don't know who in your life needs to hear this podcast. So share with as many people, because you might say, oh, that was interesting. But you don't know if your neighbor has a kid that's dyslexic, that's looking at colleges. You don't know an aunt, uncle, sister, brother. So share this podcast with as many people as you can. And we will see you again for another episode of Word Blindness Dyslexia Exposed.